Welcome in, everybody, to the Bare Knuckle Recovery Podcast, episode 17, right? 17. But episode number 2 of us being on television. So if you're listening on one of our podcast platforms right now, keep in mind we are also on TV now. I don't know exactly what channel we're on yet, but
check your local listings.
We'll get that info to you later on down the road.
Yep.
So as always, I'm Tommy Streeter. This is Nate Mollering, and as you can see, we've got a guest with us today. This is Bob Springer with Felonies to Recovery. He's got a social media platform. He's a recovery influencer, and we get to work with Bob really closely, almost on a daily basis. So we wanted to bring him in today, let him tell you guys a little bit about his story, a little bit about his background, and then just kind of what inspired him to start what started as a Facebook page, right?
Yeah.
Felonies to Recovery. So we'll let him talk about that a little bit too. So first of all, just like I said, man, just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story, how you got here.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
I was born in Goshen, raised between Goshen and Elkhart. My mom was a prostitute. My dad was an alcoholic. So growing up, I grew up poor. People in my family, like role models, were in prison. They ran bootleg joints. We never really had any positive role models at all in our family. But I guess I grew up. I can't say that I wasn't loved. I was loved as a child, but my family was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So it was one of those things where they couldn't be there 100% because obviously they had an addiction problem. So at a very young age, I learned how to survive on my own. I learned that if you had a little bit of money, you would have a little bit of power. With a little bit of power came everything you needed. I learned that through violence, you could get what you wanted. So at a young age, I caught myself getting in trouble, always in trouble at school. We would have to wear the same clothes 2 and 3 days of school. So I would get made fun of. So I learned how to fight as a young kid. And there was days that I would go to school and my dad would be drunk, passed out on the couch, and there'd be people laying in the house that we didn't even know. You open up the refrigerator, wouldn't be anything but some beer, maybe some syrup, a couple pieces of Hills of the bread. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really have a home life, and it was me and my sister. So we would go to school to eat breakfast, and we would get made fun of a lot. So I started at a young age to really get distant from people, not trust people. I always felt like if there was a God, that why are we going through this? I never believed stuff when people would tell me stuff. And as I got older, I started to involve myself in gangs. I became gang affiliated. And just trouble after trouble I was getting into. And by the time I hit middle school, I was completely off the hook. And my dad had actually sobered up. He went to jail, came home, came clean, stopped drinking and everything. And my mom, she had lived in Ohio. I had never lived with my mom and my dad together. And when he sobered up, here he was now trying to stop me from doing everything. And I didn't understand it. Like, my whole life growing up, coming up as a youngster, this was the cool thing to do, to sit around in parties and hang out. And now here this guy is trying to be a dad to me, telling me that you got to stop doing this. You can't hang out with these people. You can't go over here. And I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't listening. So I started running the streets more. And Goshen's not a real big town. And it wasn't when I was a kid either. So it's grown a lot now, but it wasn't. So whenever you get in trouble there, everybody knows. Like, every single person knows. Well, my dad ended up working for the city, got his stuff together and got a job with the city. Well, that was horrible on my part because every single time I would do something, he would know about it because he works for the city. And we bumped heads a lot. And I started drinking, hanging out. And I was always like the fat kid. Didn't have no girlfriends. Like I was the last one to maybe do anything at a party with a female, and I was poor.
Yeah.
So I started watching people selling weed. And I noticed that you could be the fat, nasty guy as long as you got a sack.
Right.
That's all that mattered. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So as I started going with it, I started to sell a little bit of weed. And then I noticed that people wanted to hang out with me. And then I noticed I started to get a little popular with the older kids, and I liked it. I felt like it was like something that I needed.
It was
Because
like
I never
like you found your calling.
Oh man,
This is
100%, man.
Your
Like
purpose. Yeah.
yeah, like I just it was insane, man, the way I went when I started off, because I didn't always start off as a drug addict. So I started selling a little bit of weed, and I was doing my thing, man. I was able to buy me a nice pair of pants, nice pair of shoes. Well, my dad found some money one time in my room. He come in, he was mad at me. He kicked the speaker in my room, and it fell open, and there was like $800 in it, rolled up in the speaker. And he was like, "Where'd you get this?" And I'm like, "I've been saving." He was like, "I ain't never gave you $1 in your life." And that's when he started really getting on me about a man doesn't sell drugs, they work. And I'm not trying to hear that. I'm like, bro, whatever. Right. So
Yeah.
I got caught probably 16 years old with a half pound of weed at school, Goshen High School. And my dad working for the city, instead of prosecuting me and putting me in jail, he was able to talk to him if I could move to Columbus with my mom and try it out. So I moved to Columbus, and that was amazing to me, because my mom let me do whatever I wanted to do. She did not tell me no about nothing. And I moved to a big city where everybody sold drugs.
Right.
And I walked into my first day of school down there. They're literally standing in the hallway smoking blunts. And when you walked into the school, they had metal detectors on the doors. So here I am already trying to be a gang member, drug dealer, and then I walk into this, and it's everything I wanted. Like it was seriously what I wanted, and
Right.
and to me it was awesome. It's where I wanted to be at, and I did that for a while. And then I got with my son's mom, and we had Jay. But I'm young. I'm not trying to be responsible. So her dad was the plug. So I got anything I wanted, and I was doing really good at it. And then my older brother from here in Indiana came to Ohio, where I was at. He was on the run on a probation violation, and he was a drug addict. He was really bad on drugs. And I might snort a little bit of coke or something, but it wasn't something I had to have to live. And when he came down, I started getting into drugs with him, doing drugs with him. And instead of him being the bigger brother, like, hey, you should stop doing this, he was always, hey, man, let me get this, let me get that. Yeah. And I always wanted a relationship with him when I was younger. Yep. But we didn't have it. Yeah. So when I was able to give to him, to me, it made me feel good, man. It made me feel right.
Well, I mean, it sounds like what you had found with selling drugs and doing drugs was human connection, which is what you probably never had as a kid, right? You felt like you never connected with anybody on a real level, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when my brother was down there, I got a phone call from him. He's like, hey, come over to this house. And I'm like, all right, I go over there, and he was just on me, man. Like, hey, let me get some dope. And I kept like playing him out. I'm like, man, I'll be back. I got you. And he was like, no, man, let me get some. Well, I gave him some. And about 20 minutes later, I get a phone call that my brother had overdosed. So I was standing in my aunt's house, actually holding my son. And I get this phone call, and I drop my son. I take off running out the house, and I'm going to where my brother was at. And as I get there, there's ambulances. My brother's in the back of the squad car or the ambulance. And I open up the door, and I'm looking at him, And he called us our older brother's name. He called me my older brother's name. Like, he didn't have a clue where he was at, what was going on. And the ambulance guy was there, and he was like, listen, he was like, I have to give him a shot of something. He was like, but if he is on drugs, this is really going to hurt him. He was like, so I need somebody to be honest. And I was scared to death. I'm like, man. I said, if he's got crack in his system, I gave it to him. I gave it to him about a half hour ago. I said, if he has opiates in his system, it came from me. I gave it to him a half hour ago. I said, do anything you have to do. Don't let him die, man. Please, you know what I mean? And I'm crying. And he was like, you know, it takes a big man to admit that. And I said, no, listen, I'll take whatever consequences come behind this. Don't let him die. Well, he gives him the shot. He comes out of it a little bit. So we get to the hospital, Ohio State Hospital, and we find out that he had cancer. Mm-hmm. And it was like a really, really rare form of cancer. But what had happened was the drugs caused him into a seizure. When the seizures did, it bursted one part of his cancer. Mm-hmm. So they said he probably wouldn't leave the hospital room. So now I'm like, oh, man. So I leave the hospital, and that's when my drug addiction started.
Yeah.
I left for a week and a half, and I participated in, it was like 4.5 ounces of crack, probably a script of the old Opanas.
Yep.
It was before I ever shot anything, so it was like the old Opanas I had, and $13,000. And I remember the whole time getting high, never changed nothing. And I had a reputation in the neighborhood where I was good. Like, I could go anywhere and get anything I wanted. I dressed real clean. And when I looked at myself in this hotel room, I was with a prostitute. And this hotel room was trash, man. And I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, holy shit, man, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I leave. I go home. My family's tripping, man. My mom's wigging out on me. What's going on? And I still never told her I'm the one that gave her son the drugs that he just messed up on, right? So I hold this in, and I go probably a month without doing any drugs whatsoever. I'm starting to sell again, get my money built up. But I had been taking Opanas. So I'm sick.
Yep.
I wasn't smoking crack, and I felt like if I wasn't smoking crack, I wasn't doing drugs. I was just doing the prescription pills, right?
Just pain pills, yeah.
Right. And I'm snorting them. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm riding through the neighborhood, and my brother, he's in the hospital still. They let him home. So my brother is at the house, and I'm going over to see him. So in the process, I see this girl. I pull over, talking to her, and I'm sick. Like, I'm really starting to feel really bad off these pills, man. And I knew she got high, but I never knew nothing about no heroin. I truly, honestly didn't. When you hear the word heroin, you're like, no, stay away. That sounds bad, right?
Don't do that.
Right. So she gets in the car, and I'm like, man, can you give me some oxys? She's like, they're $60 a pill. I'm like, shit, I don't care. Go give me one. We can't find none. Now, I'm leaving my brother that just came home from the hospital, and here I am scared to death for him, but because of my addiction, and it's starting out like this, I'm leaving him on the back burner.
Right.
So we ride around. She's like, take me over here. She runs in his house, comes out. I'm thinking she's got something. She's all happy. Now, I'm feeling bad, man. We go into this apartment of hers, and I see her take this brown stuff and put it on a piece of, like, on a glass, and she make it into a line. And I'm like, what is that? And she was like, this is H. And I'm like, what's that? And she was like, heroin, Goofy. And I'm like, nah, I'm out of here, bro. You know what I mean? Well, she did it. And that's where I messed up.
Yep.
Because when I stood there and watched her, she went from sweating to, as soon as she did it, she just laid back. And I said, how much was that? And she was like, $20. I'm like, yeah, right. She's like, yeah, so about 20 minutes go by. I said, give me one. She said, you for real? And I'm like, yeah. So she goes and gets me one. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you know, you can't say nothing to nobody about this. oh, I won't say nothing. Knowing she's about to run and tell everybody. You know what I
Right.
mean?
But you don't care because you're sick.
Right.
Don't matter.
Right.
You
And
gotta
see,
feel better.
she's the only one I can go to get this.
Yeah.
I can't go to nobody else. I don't want nobody to know, right? So
was that considered taboo as a drug dealer for you to be doing heroin? Was that like you don't cross that line?
No, that was like a joke now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody's gonna take you serious no more,
Because they think
right?
you're a junkie now,
Right,
Yeah.
100%.
You rob 'em.
So we do it. And I was good. I was fine. I'm like, wow, $20.
Yep.
That's what's up. You know, I still got 40 in my pocket that I was going to spend on the pill. You know what I mean? So I'm good, right? So that lasts for a couple of days. I go over to see my brother. He's getting worse, real bad. He ends up dying. So when he passes away, I'd went a few days snorting this, and I just left. I left everybody, man.
Yeah.
I went for a ride, and I ended up at this girl's house again. Well, another buddy that I knew that I used to sell to was there. And he's like, what you doing here, man? And I'm like, man, listen. He was like, I'm trying to get some heroin. He was like, what's up? I got you. Come on. And I'm like, man, here we go. So I go with him.
Yep.
Never seen nobody shoot nothing up in my life. So I go with him. And he comes out, and I got to use the bathroom. I got the bubble guts.
Yep.
So I'm like, look, I'll be right back. I'm going to go in his bathroom. He's like, all right, I come out. And he's got 2 needles filled up. I'm so mad, bro. I'm like, hold up, man. I'm not no junkie, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And I'm watching him. He shoots it himself. And this dude, before he pulls it out, was like this. Once again, that's where I messed up. So I sat there. I said, man, does it hurt? He was like, nah, it doesn't hurt. So I turned my head like this, and I put my arm out.
Yeah.
And he hit me.
Right. And it changed your world, didn't it?
My whole entire life changed.
Yep.
Now, when I tell you my whole life changed, the only thing in my life that I ever stayed 100% faithful to was heroin.
Yep.
I didn't care no more because you tell me I'm fired. So what? I go shoot a bag of heroin.
Yep.
You tell me that my son is disappointed in me, I shoot a bag of heroin. I did not care about nothing or no one.
Became your solution to life, right?
100%. Man.
I always tell people when I did heroin for the first time and opiates, I had a semi-spiritual experience. I was like, this is how I should feel every single day for the rest of my life, no matter what it takes. I could have just got popped in a sting operation. I got to get high so I can think.
Right.
My mom could be crying because I stole her jewelry. I got to get high so I can figure out what to do next. I could be sleeping in my car, my gas light's on 0 and it's cold outside. I'm like, I got to get right so I can figure out what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's cool. Like I always like to highlight for people as well. You probably made these small compromises, and that, you know, looking back when you started getting higher growing up, you're like, I'll never do that. I'll never do that. But slowly but surely, those walls came down one at a time, right? And it was this little compromise after little compromise after little compromise. Because people always like, if you don't want to be a heroin addict, don't do heroin. It's like nobody starts out just jamming a needle in their arm the first day they do drugs. Right. You started out selling a little bit of weed, smoking a little bit of weed, doing a bump of coke here or there, couple pills, a little bit of crack, to now you're shooting heroin in your arm, right?
How old were you?
I was...
The first time you shot heroin?
The first time I shot heroin, I was 20 years old.
Wow.
I was 20 years old. And every single problem that I'd ever had when I was a kid, I masked with heroin.
Yep.
Even though I had outgrown being molested when I was a child, watching my mom get beat up, watching my dad leave out the door when everybody tells him, you got kids, you got to stay here. But see, the alcohol for him was heroin for me.
Right.
So it controlled him. Today, I forgive my dad. We got one of the best relationships ever, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would sit around and I would remember stuff. And I would get so depressed, and I didn't have the balls on me to kill myself.
Yep.
I thought about it. I tried.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I didn't have it in me to do it.
Yeah.
So I would get high. And that's what I like to do, right? And as long as I was high, I got along with everybody in my family. So I thought.
Yeah.
But the moment I didn't have nothing, and my son would wake me up in the morning, Dad, I'm hungry. Man, he's 4 years old. Dad, I'm hungry. Get away from me.
Right.
Give me a couple hours. What you mean? He's 4 years old, bro. He's hungry. Get up and feed him. But I didn't.
None of it mattered.
I didn't.
Yeah.
He wakes me up one time. Dad, get up. What's up, man? And he's got a wiffle ball bat in his hand. and he's got my dog beside him. He's got these cowboy boots on. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, Dad, somebody broke in our house. I said, what? He said, they stole my PlayStation. Man, my son's 4 years old, 5 years old. It was me.
Oh.
I sold it for $20 worth of dope. He was so happy to have this.
Yeah.
And I sold it for $20 worth of dope.
And was that moment, was that enough to make you stop?
No. It actually made me use more because now I feel like shit.
Bad.
Yeah, bad.
Shame.
I felt bad. Yeah, right.
Shame.
I didn't know what to do. My family, my mom, everybody loved me. But they would take me to their house and I would just do something bad. My sister, her baby. My sister's baby was born. Now, my sister recorded all this. Remember when you can get the old cameras and take pictures and stuff, but when you take the card out, you lost everything? There ain't no downloads like on the phones now. Well, my sister had one. I'm at her house. I'm sick. Now, I know I'm supposed to be getting my son later on that day, and I'm always a jerk when I'm dope sick. We don't play.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm thinking. I'm going to take this camera, right? But I'm going to take this SIM card out. And if I do that, it's not really stealing her stuff. I can get rid of it.
It's all still on the card.
Right.
You're going to get her a new camera anyway. So
Right. So this is what's crazy. I traded it for 2 bags of heroin. I did them. Then I need a SIM card. I said, I got one right here. Gave me $20 worth of crack.
Yep.
And I gave a SIM card to my niece being born.
Yep.
So my sister comes home. She knows I did it.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to come out and say it, right? And I'm sitting there. Now, a long time goes by. I never admitted that to her, right? But that's the stuff that addiction did to me, right? Mm-hmm. So then I go to prison. I start getting some more trouble, and I end up catching a case and going to prison. And I went down to Richland in Ohio. When I got there, it was cool. It wasn't nothing. If you could bump a little bit or you'd stand up for yourself, it was cool. And I knew everybody there. So I ran through there, selling a little bit of dope, getting high, smoking weed on the range. I mean, just kicking it, man. It was an open yard.
How old were you when you went to prison then?
I was 21 years old when I first went to prison.
Okay. So basically from that first time you shot dope at 20 to 21 when you went to prison, that's just all you were doing that whole time?
That was it, the whole entire time. So I got out. When I got out of prison, I went to Canton, Ohio. I left Columbus, went to Canton, right? Where my mom's at. Mm-hmm. And that was the most darkest time of my entire life, man. I lived on a block called Shore Block. I was the only white dude in the whole neighborhood. And the only way you would hold anybody's respect around there is to get down with them. And I did. I was used to that. I was 130 pounds, running around there, shooting heroin, smoking crack. I mean, the darkest time of my entire life was then. I ended up going back to prison on a violation. This time around, I get out. It was like 2014 when I got out. I get out, and my homeboy from here in Indiana hits me up. Now, he's the plug around here doing his thing, getting it, doing nice. Hey, bro, come down here. And I'm like, nah, I ain't going to Indiana. Nah, man, it's cool. He was like, but I need a hook on something. Can you get this for me? And I had been clean when I got out for about the first 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't do no H or nothing for like 2 weeks, man.
And did you do that because you really wanted to change? Were you convinced, like, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to do good? Or was it kind of like, I do it because I have to? Or
I don't know why. Why, like, because I was drinking.
Right, okay.
I was drinking, but I think it was because I wasn't around it right away.
Yeah.
But when he called me for it.
Yep, that was it.
And then he showed up and he was like, what you got in your pockets? Nothing. He said, you ain't got nothing? I said, nothing, bro. I said, I'm not even making nothing off of this for you. I'm just doing it for you.
Yeah.
He was like, for real? I'm like, yeah. So he gives me $1,000. He's like, ride with me. Come to Indiana. Look out with me, and I'll send you back home.
So you're back on now.
My mom tells me, she said, you're crazy.
Yep.
You're going to go to Indiana, and they're never going to let you out of prison. You be all right, whatever.
Right.
So I come down here in 2014. October 24, 2014, I was released from Richland again. And by 2015, I was in Westville.
Yeah.
Here in Indiana. First time I ever been to Westville.
Yeah.
So when I got out in 2014, I come down here with a homeboy. Well, he went to Georgia. And when he went to Georgia to go get whatever we needed, he ended up catching a little case himself down there in Georgia. So now I'm stuck here in Indiana with no money, no nothing. But I know everybody because I'm from here. Mm-hmm. So I started from being around him. I was seeing who to go to. So that's when my time in Elkhart started.
Yep.
So I'm running to Elkhart, getting stuff, getting rid of stuff. And I see I've been in a big city now for a while. So when I come down here, they don't do things like they do in a big city.
No.
I'm the guy that will be up at 3:30 in the morning for $2 from you. They're not like that around here. Around here, it wasn't a hustle to have big stacks of money. It was hustle to get high.
Yep. Right.
I didn't understand that, right? And I'm like, man, all this money, man, we can rob these people. We can do it all. Like there's just every opportunity you want is right here, right? So my dad gets a hold of me. He was like, you look like shit, man. I said, what do you mean? I do. I'm starting to lose weight, everything again. And he was like, yeah. He was like, you need to go back home. I said, you just trying to get rid of me again, so I'm not your problem. I said, but I'm grown. You ain't got nothing to do with me. He said, all right. So he gets out of my business. He calls me about a week later and he was like, man, you're messing with this guy in Elkhart that I had known my whole entire life. It was my dad's best friend's son. I said, yeah. He said he's a cop. I thought my dad was just hating, right? So I'm over in Elkhart, man, and he comes through, and I'm sitting there. And this is no lie, man. I look at him. I said, bro, you a cop? He starts laughing. He was like, yeah, the cops is right down the street. He wasn't joking. He just played it off good.
You thought he was joking?
Yeah, and they really was. They was watching me right down the street, recording everything.
Yeah.
So that was the first buy. He calls me again. I said, nah, man, don't go to my house when I'm not there. Nah, he does anyway. So when I get there, he had this chick I was with. She was in on it too, and I never knew this until afterwards.
Right.
She tries to hand me something to hand to him, and I pull my hand back, so she handed it to him. Now, when we get outside at the door, he's got this all on video recording, right? Well, I smack his hand, and the wind was blowing, and this is no lie. It literally, like, took the whole paper out of his hand, and all the drugs went flying. But he'd already paid me for it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they couldn't use that one against me.
Ah.
But sure enough, they got me, you know what I mean? So
of course.
I go to Goshen, and I was sick, dope sick, man. I mean, one day could have $1,000, next day don't got $20. He calls me, wants some H. All I was making was a $20 bag. That was it. He shows up, and this girl's telling me, like, don't mess with him. I'm telling you, he's setting you up.
The girl that was setting you up was now changing her story.
Right. Well, let me tell you, prior to this, her phone rings. I answer it, they hang up on me.
Yeah.
So I bought this little burner phone. Thinking I'm doing it right, you know what I mean? I'm this big timer.
No one will ever catch you, right? You're smarter than all of them.
They got no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm walking down 7th Street in Goshen, and I call this number. And nobody answers, and all of a sudden this number calls back. And they was like, this is Officer Rodriguez of Goshen Police Department. He said, I'd advise you to get up out of here. And I'm like, what? I hang the phone up, I break it. I throw it in the Magucha dumpster. They got this little shop thing. I throw it in their dumpster and I go inside. And instead of like taking that as like, get the hell out of here, right?
Right, like a warning, like what it was intended to be.
I was feeling good that I'm that big now that the police is calling me, telling me they're going to get me, right?
Isn't that crazy how our thought process is when we're using?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. So I go in there and I'm like, let me see your phone. She hands me her phone. Now I'm seeing this text message from a guy like a PO. And I'm looking at it and I'm looking at her. I'm like, man, I said, I'm going to prison, man. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, because, man, something's foul here. Well, dude comes over. I get the bag from him. I do the bag. Dude, this is no lie. I walk out onto the porch. I sat down, and I wasn't real big into smoking weed when I was shooting heroin and stuff. I'd just rather shoot heroin and smoke ice.
Right.
So I'm sitting out on the porch, and she has a joint. And I'm like, let me hit that. And I like the joint. And I look up, dude, and here they come. I mean, driving over bushes. They jump out with mask on, their vest on.
Yep.
They're like, get on the ground, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, whoa, 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 bro, you got the wrong one.
Right, wrong house.
They're like, get on the ground, bub. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I get down on top of her, and I'm like, shut up, don't say a word. They're going to tell you they got me on everything. Just shut up, don't believe them. And the whole time, she knew exactly why they was there. Mm-hmm. So he stands me up, and I'm like, bro, I don't got nothing. And I really didn't. I just got high on what I bought. I didn't have, that's how strung out I was, man. I didn't have nothing.
Right.
And he was like, oh, you turned into a junkie. Now I'm getting offended because I ain't no junkie, you know what I mean?
You're better than that, right?
Right. And he was like, oh, let me guess, you ain't gonna talk. You ain't gonna cooperate. I said, nah, I ain't gonna do all that. So they take me in the house and set me down, and they look at this girl. They was like, Shay, you think you could just stop reporting when you want to? Man, I looked over at her, and he was like, they ain't as low as you think, huh, bub? Hey, man, I swear to you. I looked at her. She's crying. Don't believe him. I said, I put my head down. I said, let's go. I'm thinking Indiana, they got me. Like they done did me in. I'm never coming home. So on my way, Officer Rodriguez is the one that transports me to the county. And he was like, you want to talk to that detective? I said, no. I said, for what? I mean, I don't talk to him about nothing. It might be able to help you. I said, yeah, I'm cool, man. I said, I don't do what I do to do that, for real. He's like, all right, be a tough guy. Okay. So I go to Elkhart County, and they come at like 12 o'clock at night talking about you got an attorney visit. I said, man, ain't no attorney comes here at 12 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? I ain't going. Oh, you don't got a choice. So I walk out. They take me down the hallway, and I see two of my homeboys coming up, and they was like, bro, whoever going down there about to have a bad visit. I'm like, what's up? And they was like, you'll see, bub. So I walked down there, and the whole room's full of detectives that busted me. I said, I ain't going in there. He was like, he said, I'm a man of my word. And this is the truth. He telling me, I'm a man of my word, Bob. I said, what's that? He said, you see that door right there? I said, yeah. He said, I personally will walk you in there, dress you out, and walk you through those double doors right there and let you go. I said, really? You do that for me? He was like, yeah, but you gonna do something for me. I said, I don't know nothing. He starts naming these names off. I said, I don't know them. So he opens a folder up. He said, that's not you with him? I was like, nah, man, that ain't me. He said, so that's not you with them? And I'm like, nah, that's not me, man. He said, you know, you're in a lot of trouble. He said, what you gonna do, tough guy? I said, well, if you wanna know the truth, I said, I'll probably go back to my cell and cry. Call my dad and my son, tell them I'm sorry. I said, and then I'm gonna turn up. If I got no out date and nothing to look forward to, who cares? I said, I'm gonna make you ride me out of here fast. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, I leave. I go to court. And this is how God works, man. This is how my story really starts to change, man. So I go into the courtroom. My sister's there. And I look back, and I'm thinking, they got me on 3 level 5s. That could hold up to 30 years right there. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there, and the judge, I'm standing there, and he was like, you know, Robert, I can give you this much time. And it was 1 to 6 years, because what they done was they ran all my level 5s together. Mm-hmm. They ran it wrong. They did it wrong. He said, put his hand over the mic. He said, can I speak with you for a minute? To the attorney, my attorney, the prosecutor, called him. He was so mad. When I heard 1 to 6 years, I'm like, oh shit, this ain't nothing.
Yeah.
Now my whole attitude changed, right? So I get sentenced to the 5 years, go down to Westville. I think I get out 3.5 years.
Yep.
I got like 18 months left.
Sure.
On the shelf.
Yeah.
I come home, I leave Westville, putting a needle on my arm, getting high.
Yep.
Now, this whole time, God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because he very easily could have taken my freedom from me for life.
Right.
I make it home, go see my PO, drop dirty, shooting dope on my way to her. I run from her for 6 months. Mm-hmm. I overdose in my dad's house. My dad calls the cops on me. Now, I believe him when he tells me that was the hardest thing he ever did in his life. And I believe that. I was dead in this house. They Narcaned me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wake up handcuffed to 5 Goshen cops on top of me.
Yep.
And all I hear my dad say is, Bob, please don't fight him. And he said, please don't hurt him. He's a good man. He's strung out on drugs. He was like, he really is a good man. And that cop looked at me, man. He was like, that man loves you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, F him, bro. He called the cops on me.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
You couldn't see it. You couldn't see it.
No, I couldn't see it, right? I go back to court, and Cristofino was the judge. He's a circuit court judge. I'm like, bro, one more time. Give me one chance. He started laughing. He said, I'm giving you all your time.
Yeah.
It's only 18 months. He said, no, it ain't 3 years.
Yeah.
I said, what? He said, yeah. So he give me the 3 years. I go back down to Westfield. I'm in Westfield this time with every single person that I kicked it with in the streets. You know how on an iPhone you can pin your favorite 6 people?
Yeah.
Well, they was all in prison with me.
Yeah.
Every last one. I'm on the dorm with me, man.
Yeah.
So we're getting high, suboxone, strung out, man. We get in some stuff into the yard. They level us up. They send me to Michigan City. When I hit Michigan City behind the wall, I straightened up. I'm not going to lie to you. That is the most powerful thing God ever did to me in my entire life, was put me there. Westfield didn't scare me. Michigan City didn't really scare me. What scared me was being around somebody that had no outdate. Their jokes was different. Their laughs was different. Their face was different. There was no, it was insane, man. It was totally insane to have to live that way. To look at somebody that if you accidentally pass gas, they would cut you and kill you over that.
Because they don't care, because they got no outdate.
I seen a guard disrespect this guy for 2 days in a row, my neighbor. And he told the guard, he said, listen, man, you go home, I don't. Chill out, leave me alone. Kept up for like 2 days. They pop our doors to go to chow. And he said, hey, bub. I'm like, what's up, man? He was like, stay in your cell. I'm like, man, what you about to do, bro? And he's like, stay in your cell, bro. So when he tells me to hold off not to come out, right? Well, see, in Michigan City, you're in single man cells and you're on a range. I was on 538, A cell house, cell 538. You're up in the jungle. Nobody getting to you, nothing. Got two COs for like 75 inmates, and every one of the inmates is killers or rapists.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? None of them's good.
So they don't got pity on you.
No, not at all. So he coaches. I'm holding my mirror out like this, looking down the range, and I see it says CO. I'm like, oh, man, something bad's about to happen. Hey, man, he calls him over to the thing. Hey, man, my door won't open. And this CO's talking trash to him. And he don't realize what this dude's about to do to him.
Yeah.
So he reached out and grabbed the CO and pulled him to him and hit him like probably 7 times in the face with a knife.
Wow.
When the CO fell, it was the weirdest sound when you hear somebody getting stabbed.
Yeah.
It was the most gruesomest thing that I had seen personally. Mm-hmm. The door opened and every inmate walked over top of him like he wasn't nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't nothing.
Nope.
We made it halfway out the house and they locked us down. But nobody cared. Nobody was looking to help him.
Mm-mm.
Nobody was. And that's when I was like, man, this is crazy.
Don't want to live this life.
No. So some stuff pops off. I end up getting stabbed in the hand, in the back of the neck, and in the back. I'm like 2 weeks to the gate before I go home. And I remember sitting in my cell, man, before this even popped off. I knew some stuff was about to go down. And I said, Lord, the only way I'm going to get sober is if you take everything in my life away. I can't come home kicking it with the same people, doing the same things, and expect different results. And I'm starting to know this, like I really, truly am. So my door pops. And boy, he got a heck of a way of showing you know what I mean? So I get into it, man. And I get got pretty bad. I got hit with a lock. Like I got messed up pretty bad. I wore a black eye for like 5 months when I got out of prison.
Yeah.
So I had a couple broke ribs, but I made it out, right? So I'm sitting there. They come up like, well, what happened? I'm like, oh, I fell. It ain't no thing, you know what I mean? I'm ready to go home, man, you know what I mean? So the write-up that I had disappeared. So that truly was God doing for me what I couldn't, right? So My day come to get out. When I got released, it was like 12 o'clock at night. My dad was there. My dad says, you got some rules, you come to my house. I'm like, man, let's get in the truck and go. Tell me about them. Let's just leave.
Yeah.
He said, you're not getting in until you understand these rules. I said, look, man, get in the truck and let's leave.
Yeah.
He said, you will go to church on Wednesdays and you'll go twice on Sundays. I said, you can't tell me what I got to do. He said, then you ain't come to my house. I said, look, Dad, let's just go. So we're in the truck. We're on the freeway going back to Arkansas. And he said, listen, he said, for 20 years, I lost my son.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I have watched you do everything in your power to destroy yourself and everybody around you. He said, do you know that I don't even know your favorite color? I don't know what your favorite food is, and you're my son. He said, do you know your sons? And I'm like, no, I really didn't. And I'm like, all right, man. I'm like, man. But see, what he don't realize is I'm about to be withdrawing off Suboxone. I've been doing a strip a day.
Really?
For the last year and a half.
Huh.
Every single day, never missed a day. So I didn't have nothing when I left. So March 21st, 2020, I was released. March 22nd, 2020 is my sobriety date. He pulls his truck over. He said, if you don't agree to my terms in my house, get out now. I did you a favor. I picked you up from prison. Now get out. And I said, man, I ain't getting out, so I guess I'll go. So when I get home to his house, COVID happened. Now, when COVID happened, I was one of the last people to get released from Indiana prisons because Indiana went on lockdown. Like right after I got released, like within a day or two. So I lucked out there.
Yeah,
man.
significantly, yeah.
Yeah. So I get down here and I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, damn near shitting my pants and throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at me. I'm like, man, I must have gotten sick or something. Well, this happens for like 2 weeks.
Did you ever just tell him?
Afterwards, I didn't tell him like as it was going on.
You're probably
but
scared, right? Like you thought he was gonna be like, get out.
Yeah. Because he's a very judgmental person. Because in his mind, if he can get sober, anybody can. He don't believe in relapses. He don't believe in this. We didn't see eye to eye on stuff.
Sure.
So I'm like, man, this is crazy, man. I feel like crap. It's got to be from the Suboxone.
Right.
Nose running.
Worse than heroin?
Oh, man, wasn't it? Dude, I'm not lying to you.
I
there.
know.
It
We both
was way
detoxed off subs, and it was
way
pretty
worse,
rough.
bro. Way worse.
than
Pretty
heroin.
rough.
Yes, it was. And
It lasts longer too.
I didn't know if I wanted to be sober. All I knew is I just came home from prison, and I wanted some girls. I wanted this. I wanted to smoke some weed. Like it's something I wanted. I just didn't want to be sober. But the longer I started staying sober, I went 1 year without no social network. I didn't have no phone. Well, I had a phone, but I didn't have no Facebook or nothing.
Yeah.
And my dad kept my bank card. Mm-hmm. And in 1 year, when I got to my first year of sobriety, I'm like, holy crap, I've been sober a year.
Yeah.
Bet. Well, then I get reconnected with my wife. I was blessed. Mm-hmm. She's not in addiction. And she's blessed to have me the way I am today and not like I was before.
Right.
And I told my dad, I said, I'm going back to Indiana. And I expected him to be like, no, don't do that. And he looked at me and he was like, Bob, you've been sober a year. He said, nobody can do this but you. If you want to stay sober, you'll stay sober.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. But I needed his blessing for me to go. Me and my dad got really close and he saved my life, man, by letting me come to his house. Like, I love my pops with everything, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. So I hit my knees and I asked God, I said, the only way I can go back to Indiana is if you take the cravings from me.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm from. I know everybody. I know where to go get high at. I can get anything I want here.
Right.
I would still wake up with cravings. And I promise you, I told him, if you take the cravings from me, I will do everything in my power to help another person. And he did. Like, I don't wake up every single day wanting it. Like, it's not something, I could walk in a room and taste something. Like, it was crazy. See a person light something sometimes or burn something and certain smells would come into my body and I would start thinking about these drugs, man. And it would have a power over me like crazy. I never understood it, but I was an addict. and I was a really, really, really good addict. You know what I mean, I was really good at being an addict.
World class.
Yeah, like I really was. And so when I came down here, I was scared. I was scared. I cried as soon as I crossed into Indiana, man.
Yeah.
I'm crying. I'm like, Lord, please, man. I really, really don't want to do drugs no more.
Right.
And that's what it started happening. I really started thinking, like, I don't want to do drugs no more.
No.
I really don't, man. I finally got my son back in my life. And my grandson, I met him, man. And it was just like, it was so amazing to me having a bank account. Like, it was cool. I liked it. And then I was with my wife, and I was at work. I started working at Triton Metal. And I posted like a video one morning on social network. It was kind of like a testimony.
Yeah.
And a few people started commenting on it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, man, maybe I could do this in the mornings and be grateful. Well, I started posting another video, and then I was sitting at home with my wife, and I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm going to make a page. I said, and I don't know what I'm going to call it. I said, but I'm going to make one. I said, and I'm going to help every single addict out here. I said, when I die, my funeral will be so full, they'll have 10 parking lots.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, don't do something if your heart's not in it.
Right.
I said, yeah, you're right. But I can do this. I was an addict.
Right.
Who better to talk to than somebody that's done it?
Right.
Didn't have veins in my arms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I've never gotten a tattoo on the street. I've gotten all mine in prison. I've never experienced some things because of prison. Like, I was so devoted to the streets in prison that I didn't know how to have a normal conversation.
Right.
I didn't know how to dress in today's society. I was still stuck back in the 90s type thing, or sweatpants and a white t-shirt. And today I still struggle with the white t-shirt thing. But
You're wearing one today.
I know, right?
There you go.
But I didn't know how to be a dad. I didn't know how to do
Right.
stuff like that. So I'm learning, right? And we're sitting there, and I said, felons. I said, felons will recover. And she was like, what? I'm like, nah, that don't sound right. So I'm riding, and I call my mom, and I'm talking to my mom. And she's like, you know, I'm really proud of you. She was like, it takes a lot for a person that is a felon to recover.
Yeah.
And I said, that's it. She said, what? I said, felonies to recovery. And my mom was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's the name of my page, Felonies to Recovery.
Yeah.
And she was like, I thought you quit doing drugs. Like, and she started laughing. I was like, I did. I said, nah, Mom, you just named my page for me.
Mom had jokes, huh?
So that's where the name Felonies to Recovery came from, is my mom's the one that actually named the page, right?
That's
so
awesome.
I put the name on there, and I just started talking, man, from the heart. Like I put myself out there, because a lot of people, even in rooms, recovery, you get people that come in, they'll tell you some stuff, but they're not going to tell you, yeah, I was molested or this
Right.
happened. They don't want to be judged, right?
They want to control like what you know about them. They
Right.
only want to show you the good parts, the good recovery. They don't want to talk about the struggles, you know.
Right. And I'm complete opposite.
Yeah, you gotta be.
I'm complete opposite.
That's real recovery.
Because if I tell you my downfalls, what can you bust my balls about?
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. All you can do is make yourself look dumb now
Right.
by trying to be negative on me when I just told you my
Yeah.
weakest moments.
Yep.
But my page has grown
Yeah.
to almost 45,000 followers.
Yep.
I get messaged every single day on advice. Who would ever thought people would be asking me for advice on recovery? And I love it, man.
Yeah.
To be able to go help somebody today, man, it's worth everything to me. I don't care if I'm ever rich in my life no more, because I'm so much richer today than what I've ever been in my entire life, man.
You're living out your purpose.
Oh, 100%.
Which is
And I love it. Yeah,
Priceless.
you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no limit to what I can do with it.
Nope.
And I plan on doing everything that I can for it, because I'm an addict, man, a recovering addict. And the best thing about talking to addicts is you can't bullshit them.
Yep.
You can't,
true.
because they're sitting there like, what's
They'll
he lying
sniff it
about?
out.
Yeah, right? So when you're real with them, I think that's what's helped my page grow the way it has.
Honesty.
We're going to have you back on for another episode.
Absolutely.
I hate to end this conversation, but we are running out of time. So in the meantime, check out Bob's page, Felonies to Recovery. It's on Facebook. You got a YouTube channel.
Yep,
Is there any
YouTube.
other platforms you're on?
I got
right
on
now?
TikTok.
On TikTok. Okay. So yeah, check Bob out on social media.
Yep.
Obviously, we're on all those pages also. Thank you guys for joining. We're definitely going to have Bob back on for another
Thanks
episode.
for coming, Bob.
Thanks,
Good
guys,
stuff,
for
man.
having me.
Thank you very much, man.
Awesome stuff.
All right, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.